So it's a new month. So this month, Pat, our chair of the Sunday Forum Committee, she keeps reminding us that we should stick to our just cause statement. And so this month is the month for working for God's justice locally and globally. And today, Pat and Beth Laidlaw will be talking about making policy in community, Presbyterians proclaiming anti-racism. The Genesee Valley Presbytery, you've seen this in the announcements, of course. Genesee Valley Presbytery has directed each church in the region to create their own anti-racism policy with strategies and practices specific to that congregation. So Elder Beth Laidlaw from Third Presbyterian will share the process her church experienced. But first, Pat will speak and will summarize additional suggestions and guidance that the DEIB team will use in crafting a policy for our congregation's approval next Sunday after the service. Pat wants to take it away here.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. We're going to start with a history lesson. How many of you knew that besides Brick Church being founded in 1825, Memorial AME Zion, Rochester's first African-American church, was founded in 1827. They built their beautiful brick building in 1879, and they have been a presence ever since, right? We have a strong Black church presence in the city of Rochester, first through AME Zion, and then look how recently Trinity Emmanuel, how long ago it was that Trinity Emmanuel got its start. So Trinity Emmanuel is the Black Presbyterian church in Rochester, okay, on Shelter Street. They have a congregation of 100. They are alive and thriving and intent on continuing to serve their community. They do a breakfast on, is it Saturdays? Yeah. So they do a lot of community service. They're a successful congregation, and they built their building in 1914, and it looks as solid and, as any of these other brick, solid brick churches. So I just wanted you to be aware of their presence of these two churches and other successful African-American congregations in the Rochester area. So why this is important is because to be anti-racist, a church actually needs to be pretty large and robust, right, in order for it to support social justice programs and to nurture its own members, okay? But we, as we all know, we have this situation of a presbytery that has had churches close, so we are dwindling. And then at the same time, Rochester has a rich religious landscape with new churches being founded, sometimes in buildings that once belonged to the presbytery, interestingly enough. And people who decide they want to leave Presbyterianism have choices. And people who might have joined a Presbyterian church have many options now. So just a few examples. For example, Dewey Avenue Press out in Greece became New Life United Methodist, which is an African-American church, okay? Brighton Presbyterian is now Solid Rock Church. It's non-denominational. John Knox Presbyterian became Light of the World Assembly of God. I think it's primarily Hispanic church. And how many of you knew that we have a Presbyterian Church of America church in Rochester? It's called Grace Church, and it was founded in 2005 by a couple who came to Rochester and didn't want to go to the other Presbyterian churches, so they created a PCA church. And then one of the most dynamic growing churches in the city currently is Grace Road Church, which was founded in 2009 in somebody's living room. And now they have grown to the point where they took over the Christian Science building on East Avenue, that huge building that had Lyric Theater. So Lyric moved out, and they've got 1,000 members. That's how big they are. So yeah, question already? comment.
And many of us were aware that the Irondequoit Presbyterian Church just
Yeah.
had their last services, but we got notification that, oh shoot, I can't remember. It meets in the Gates Presbyterian Church. It's El
Oh,
Shaddai.
really? So El
couldn't remember.
Shaddai is going to
El
take that
Shaddai
building
is
over?
interested in going into that
Oh,
space.
wouldn't that be
Yeah,
awesome?
Pastor Heritage. so,
Wow.
yeah.
That's fantastic. So by way of understanding why downtown church is primarily white, has to do with the fact that we have these ancient origins, right, of 1825, and then the pictures over there show us in 1950 from one of our histories, right? You see, it's not a diverse congregation in 1950 at all, right? And that's partly because Rochester was not diverse in 1950. Up to 1950, the percentage of African American city residents was 1%, okay? And then in the 50s and the 60s and then subsequent decades, more people came to Rochester. They wanted to live here. This is a great place to be. And that's probably why our black churches are thriving, right? Because we've gone from being African Americans being 1% of the city's population to 40, right? So that's our context, okay? And I just, I couldn't help myself. I had to tell you all about it. But what I really need to tell you about is what our General Assembly has done and what our presbytery is doing. So the General Assembly in 1998 approved a racial ethnic growth strategy. It says, we're 88% white, but we should be more diverse. America is not 88% white, so our church should not be so white, okay? So the General Assembly said what we should do is think about, being active in this, make a social intervention to serve a multicultural society. Proceed through some anti-racism training in order to help that happen, and to recognize that there are very powerful forces, systemic racism, discrimination, cultural disappreciation. That's where you don't respect and care about other people's cultures, right? If you have those problems in your church, you are not going to have growth in your diversity, okay? So the General Assembly then in 1999 and 2016 created two policy statements for the church, the national church, and said, we need to have a vision of an intercultural community, building on a vision of the beloved community. And they have a quote from President Obama, Black Lives Matter is a real thing because concerns about policing and profiling in communities of color are real and valid, said our then president. And so the General Assembly concluded that the entire Christian community, including the PCUSA, must recommit to the struggle for racial justice. And they asserted that churches provide a moral compass for the nation by getting involved in shaping public policies that will move the nation towards justice, peace, and reconciliation. So what we get then is a sevenfold strategy for dismantling racism within the Presbyterian Church. And sevenfold means just all the different levels. So from the General Assembly through the synods and presbyteries and congregations, including educational institutions, our seminaries, right? And they didn't list what the related agencies were. I'm sure there are a bunch. But then also all of our formula of agreement churches. Okay, so PCUSA has this commitment. So congregations are said to be the centerpiece of anti-racism ministry because this is where moral values are taught and nurtured, and families receive support in nurturing values essential for living in an intercultural society. And congregations can affect change in the community by building bridges of communication across racial and cultural lines as they worship together, right? So urban Presbyterians, right? All of our associations with our neighboring Presbyterian churches, including supporting Trinity Emmanuel, right? All of this is building bridges and for the purpose of dismantling racism. So the tasks of presbyteries are to address any outstanding issues of racism, right? Any egregious examples and cases, and to provide anti-racism training for all the staffs and committees on the presbytery, and then in partnership with General Assembly agencies, recruit, train, and commission presbytery-based anti-racism teams, which Beth is going to talk about because Third has gone a long ways in creating a curriculum for anti-racism training. And so these anti-racism teams work with congregations to establish and support anti-racism programs and ministries. So our presbytery put this on our page in October of 2024 when they announced the presbytery's anti-racism policy. And our policy says that we will love our neighbors as ourselves by seeking to know and understand the effects of racism on our neighbors of color. The church and it makes this statement that the church and its people have been wounded by centuries of racism. PCUSA was founded and historically run by white people and remains 88% white. So we can fairly say that we are implicated in legacies of racism and white supremacy that continue to shape the U.S. and our church. Therefore, PCUSA recommends, and PGV, our presbytery, is requiring anti-racism training at least once every 3 years for pastors, Christian educators, New Faith community leaders, candidates for ministry, and all presbytery staff, and is strongly recommending anti-racism training for retired teaching elders, elders serving leadership roles in the presbytery, session members, youth directors, Christian educators, music leaders, and other congregational staff leaders. PGV is committing to providing this required training 4 times a year at locations across the presbytery and via Zoom, and offering training, anti-racism training activities 4 times a year across the presbytery, including listening sessions, workshops, book video discussions, presentations, a number of things. Activities can be scheduled for presbytery meetings, youth retreats, congregational learning day, all of these options. And Nancy Brown and I went to Geneseo recently, and Beth was there, and we had a lovely day of exploration with all the other people who came from other churches. And we got to meet people and talk about what they're doing. And it was marvelous. Just great. So PCUSA, by the way, does provide support to Trinity Emmanuel and other African American congregations. But the thing is that they're struggling like we are. We wouldn't want to poach any of their members because 68% of these churches only have 100 members, including our Trinity Emmanuel, and they have lost members. Only 24% have gained members. Okay, so really what we want to do is be supportive of our historically Black congregations. So in some, Presbyterian churches in Rochester and downtown are unlikely, I would say, to have racial ethnic growth, at least through merger, because we don't want to try to take over Trinity Emmanuel, right? They don't want us to take them over. And we also can't expect that we will have people coming to our doors because there are these new Presbyterian churches that are being formed and are succeeding. And then the non-denominational churches, the Grace Road is just, it's blowing up in terms of having members. But, and then we have to put that into the context of how people are less likely to religiously affiliate. So that's just my introduction, because really what we want to do is hear exactly what Third has done, because they have their policy in place. They've been working on it for some time, and they have a curriculum that they are sharing, and they would bring it to us, I'm sure. Yeah. Okay, turning it over to Beth.
Good morning, friends. I'm so delighted to be here. I'll introduce myself in a minute. I just want to say we're going to describe a bit about what Third's doing. Then we're going to watch a short video that might help you understand the shift in thinking at Third about mission and outreach. And then we'll describe some of our outcomes, and maybe I've got a handout of questions for you leading into this week of and months of discerning an adequate anti-racism policy for the downtown church. I'm just so excited to see you're friends of mine, and I'm just really grateful to be here this morning. My name's Beth Laidlaw. I'm an elder at Third. I've been a deacon, been a trustee, currently a clerk, a new role for me, and I'm swimming in. Yeah. So I'm happy to have met Pat, because I at least have someone to call up and say, what's a minutes review? I don't know. Anyway, also with us this morning, we have members of the Racial Justice, Peace, and Advocacy Working Group of the Presbytery. And that's really how Pat and I met. The Racial Justice, Peace, and Advocacy Working Group is the organization that put on the training in Geneseo where I met Pat. It is a group of Presbytery, largely ministers and lay folks, led by Jeanette, thank you, Henderson. But we have purposely, intentionally been inviting Black voices and listening to those Black voices on that working group. Okay, I've been at Third for 42 years. So what I'm saying today is my perspective in admiring, I almost said worshiping, Downtown United Presbyterian Church for those 42 years, right? Because I was admiring you folks during the sanctuary era. I was admiring you folks a little further down the road in funding Janie Sparr's pastorate. More recently, my stepson was caught up in the Daniel Prude march, took shelter in this building. So this building for me is hallowed ground, and I'm just really, really grateful to be here. So my assessment of anti-racism here, or where you might go, might be a little bit different than yours, because I'm coming at it from an external perspective. However, we share a lot in common. 50 years ago, there were 5,000 members at Third Presbyterian Church, and now there's less than 1,000. So we have that grief of losing families. We have that grief of losing children's choirs. We have the grief of losing money, right? I mean, our budget isn't what it used to be. And we have the difficulty that you might have of siloed organizations within the church and also outside of these walls. It's so difficult to do anti-racism work if you're doing it alone. This work is a work of conversation. It's a work of bridge building, as Pat had said earlier. You guys are at a great start. You have a devoted group of folks beginning to write your policy, and that is where we started in 2019 from a Sunday forum. We call it Sunday Seminar. We did an anti-racism, I think we did just one session, and out of that grew this kernel of a committee. You may know the four of us who wrote the policy initially: Ralph Carter, who brought this perspective of more light, Lori Mahoney, who brought the perspective of local advocacy on behalf of anti-poverty and housing. My perspective came in, I've been working for the betterment of children in this city for a while. We also had Melanie Jones, congregation member, Black member who was very well integrated into the Rochester Black community, so on sororities and in a number of organizations locally. And she is, and you will need to find some of these people, you probably, I know you already have them, connections to them. They're angels in this process. They're African-American folks who have taken on the burden of helping us. They're African-American folks who do the emotional labor of reliving their experience and their trauma for the benefit of our organizations, our spiritual developments. So we drafted our little policy, and first thing we did was send it to the 5 African-American families in our congregation. One of our families, the Tolliver family, you probably have heard of. Mr. Tolliver's name's escaping me, was a physician in Brighton. He and his wife, Yvonne, were able to buy their house only through a shadow buyer. They could not buy a house in Brighton when they were raising children. So we sent the policy to the folks in our congregation we knew, and we also sent it to, invited into conversation, William Wilkinson, Lawrence Hargrave, Marilyn Cunningham, 3 ministers, 3 Black ministers. These angels I'm talking about are folks who will tell you like it is, but tell you with love. And so you are able to hear what they're saying to you. Their comments were incredibly motivating and insightful. They like taking the scales off our eyes. Yvonne in particular said to us, we are a congregation of consequence, and it would be immoral for us not to act in a decisive way toward an anti-racism community. I would charge you with that same advice. You are a congregation of consequence in this community, and I'm just very excited at your development in reaching for an anti-racism policy. Okay, so in the first year and a half, our very first policy, and I will share with you QR codes to the Presbytery's policy, our policy. The one I'm sharing with you is a recent revision. Our very first policy in 2020, September of 2020, called for the entire church to do nothing but listen and learn for a year and a half. And that's all we did. Every committee listened and learned from Black voices about whatever their discipline was, whether it was worship or property or trustees. And they had to report at their annual report, their little submission to the annual report, they had to describe the sources, what they learned, what they did. That was our kind of springboard. And then the anti-racism committee, this was during COVID, and we were all thirsting for content online. So we just started pumping it out. We would have a weekly email with links and articles and advocacy actions every week for over a year. A lot of that went into the curriculum that we developed. We ultimately trained 60 folks within our congregation and now have started training externally. We are currently having a 5-week small group session in Gates, and the curriculum we've developed is locally focused. So there are voices, Mitch Gruber's voices in the curriculum. There's voices from residents who are living in our community and realizing they're racist in the curriculum. It's local, it's scripture-based. Not all the resources I'll share with you are, but ours is, and that felt really, really important to us. And it's free. We just ask if we go off-site to train that you feed us. So we begin a 2-hour session with a half-an-hour meal, which we think spiritually is essential because this is all about relationship building. It's all about having conversations that change you, and you need to be connected to one another in order to do that work. Ultimately, our mission shifted from bringing people into our building to feed, to house, to educate, to worship, to coming alongside Black-led organizations and supporting them in ways we felt were meaningful. So we're going to watch a video, hopefully, right now. This is a voice of Dr. Bettina Love, born and bred in Rochester, New York, although the city school system did not treat her very well, currently at Columbia. And she is explaining to us the difference between allyship and co-conspiracy. She's going to be talking about how they took the flag, the Confederate flag, down in South Carolina. I want you to focus on the gentleman in a fluorescent vest at the base of the flagpole. He is the ally. He is the co-conspirator, and he is the one that Bettina wants you to focus on. Do we need to turn the lights down or no? No? Okay. Yes.
Is done alone. And so again, thank you for giving us language. The next question is for both of you. You talk about, you make the move from allyship to co-conspiratorship. So the question I want you to sit with is, can you identify, once Dr. Love gives us a definition, can you identify a co-conspirator that you've had in your work? And can you break down for us this difference between an ally and a co-conspirator?
Yeah, so
I bet you can.
so the book is about like this idea of abolitionist teaching, right? And so shout out to upstate New York. I'm from upstate New York. We don't like New Yorkers, but that's okay. Because when you're from upstate New York, like, where are you from? I'm from upstate. Queens? No. Brooklyn? No. Albany? No, I'm from upstate New York, Rochester, New York, 90 miles from Canada, right? And so, so we had abolitionists in upstate New York. That's where I grew up. And the one thing about an abolitionist had to be a co-conspirator. I mean, I want y'all for a second to just think about the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad freed over 100,000 enslaved Africans and black folks, right? Think about this. There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. This was all off trust and love of each other. And to say that this system of racism and bondage, no more.
Yeah.
We did that. It was everyday people. Farmers, bankers, doctors, teachers, nurses, all ethnicities. We did that as a country. Someone came to your door, gave you a code, you just had to trust them. And so I wanted to bring that back. What would it mean for us in 2019 to think about what it would mean to be an abolitionist and to be a co-conspirator? And in the book, I use James Tyson. Now, many people are not familiar with who James Tyson is. You know Bree Newsom. Bree Newsom was the young black woman who took that Confederate flag down in South Carolina 8 days after Dylann Roof went into the AME church. And I tell the story in the book because I think this is an important story, because Bree Newsom and James Tyson did not know each other. There were some folks who got together and said, that flag is coming down. They said, and a black woman's gonna take it down. They taught Bree how to climb. They had Bree's bail money ready. And that morning, Bree Newsom and James Tyson were at an IHOP. They got the word, come take the flag down. Bree Newsom climbs up on the pole to take the flag down. Now, this is where the difference between an ally and a co-conspirator is. James Tyson, now there's a gate for the flagpole. James Tyson isn't standing like outside the gate. Okay, like, Bree, they coming, Bree. Like, Bree. No, James Tyson, he is inside. And then the police say, You know what? We can get her down. Tase the pole. James Tyson, because he wasn't here, he was here, said, okay. He put his hand on the pole. That white man at that moment understood why he was there. He put his hand on the pole, and he knew that the police would not tase that pole with a white man, healthy white man, right there. He saved her life. That's what it means to be an ally. You can stand out there, and allies know all the language, they read all the books, they come to the meeting with all the terms. Right? They read the report before you read the report. Right? I always say allies make black folks feel bad. Like, did you read the new Ta-Nehisi Coates book? Like, damn, I didn't read the new Ta-Nehisi Coates book. Like, you know, I've been busy being black. Right? So I didn't read the new Ta-Nehisi Coates book, but I know it's fire. Right? So they come and they know everything and they good. And then after the meeting, you're like, well, what we gonna do? They go, you're like, hey, they left already? Where'd they go?
I'm gonna call it Uber.
I'm gonna call it Uber, right? So that's the difference between being an ally and a co-conspirator. You know, and this is that back to that abolitionist, is to put something on the line for somebody.
Yeah.
Take a risk to see how to use your whiteness. And I tell folks all the time, whiteness is like a bank. And it just, your ATM card just replenishes itself. So spend it. As the kids say, cash out. Right? Cash out. It's gonna come right back. And so to be a co-conspirator, I try to write in the book, is to take risks for somebody. To put something on the line, but to use it in a way in which where you're using your privilege.
Yeah.
Yes.
Use it. And I'm not for trans folks, like use it for queer folks.
Gotta get it to the top.
Fine, take a risk. It doesn't have to be small risk, big risk. James Tyson simply said here, put his hand on the pole. That's it. And that's what we are talking about with co-conspirators. Allies, they know everything, they can say it, they can talk it. But when it's time, they're not there. And if they're there, they're looking at you like, you going? Oh, you going. You go on the front lines, right? Black folks and brown folks, we don't want to fight racism. The Creator did not put me here to fight racism.
Yeah.
If you believe that, that's racist. I should be here and be in my full life and be my full self and my full human.
Yes.
But I gotta fight what y'all created. So they gotta come to the table with something more than just, I read the new book.
Right.
Right? Take a risk.
So having heard that definition, you didn't know I was setting you up for this, did you? But you read the book, so you knew.
Yes, I.
We gotta get her here. Yeah. We gotta read her book and get her here. Wow.
Share. See. So I am handing out some ideas, is what I'm handing out. Okay, I'm handing out some ideas. I walked away from the mic, sorry. Yeah, this is a clip from C-SPAN, and at Third Church, we are experts at getting free open source resources, and this is such a resource. So the curriculum we developed has probably 45 different pieces, all of it open source, all of it free for public consumption, so that we don't have to run into expensive training. We have invested at Third Church twice now in the Next Church national training, which is not cheap and definitely worthwhile, but for a congregation's purpose, I'm going to direct you to some resources. So first, I want to tell you a little bit about our outcomes at Third, and then I'll say something about the resources on the back of your handout. So what have we done at Third? Our goal is allyship. Our goal is coming alongside Black-led organizations. We knew we were beginning to succeed when people outside of our committee started taking initiative to do various activities. Our East Avenue grocery run folks, the grocery run was yesterday, 1,800 people ran in it. Initially, all that money stayed in our building for our food cupboard and our Saturday noontime dining room ministry meal. The executive committees who had gone through the training decided to expand not only the number of pantries, so now we do 36 local food pantries. We fund through that run, but increase the amount of money we're giving to those 36 pantries. You'll hear a theme here that our coming alongside often involves money. Yeah. Oh, sure. It's yeah. So 16 years ago, 4 moms who at that point liked to run. Not sure they do now, but organized the first run. We had, I want to say 500 runners, raised, I don't know, $1,800, and it's just grown always the first Saturday in November. So yesterday on East Avenue, there were 1,800 runners. Go down Union to the river, back. There's a 5K route, a 10K route, a 1K race, and a broccoli boogie for kids 5 and younger. It's a huge family-friendly event, big party with food afterwards. So yeah, for our purposes here, the really wonderful thing is that the committee that deals with the money for that run on their own said, you know, we have so much privilege here. Let us share the privilege. Let us expand the mission in pretty easy ways, right? Writing a check. But they had to develop relationships with those 36 pantries. They had to have conversations with those 36 pantries. The other highlight I want to bring to your attention, which again did not come out of our anti-racism team, had a congregation member who said, for 3 years, we got to support Black-owned businesses. Third churchers need to do this. And so I went with him to the trustees and made the mistake of using the word reparation and was almost escorted out of the room. But we learned from that. We learned from that point to really focus on encouraging our congregation members to spend their dollars at Black-owned businesses. So we have a Bob team, Black-owned business team. And last year, our wonderful Reverend Polano, who you're going to hear in a few minutes, challenged us to spend $10,000 in December at Black-owned businesses. And I looked at Ted and said, you have got to be kidding me. We did it. And it was a lot of cajoling, a lot of daily pumping out information. Here's Black-owned businesses we've been frequenting. So we're in our 2nd year of that. Over the last year, we've spent $22,000 at Black-owned businesses, over 250 purchases, everything from a deck to coffee at Equal Grounds. You have a QR code for the holiday Black-owned business promotion, which is a draft. The committee hasn't actually finalized it, but it lists about 40 Black-owned businesses that we've been to, that we love. They're friends of ours. Again, relationships that we've built. So this isn't about getting people into Third Church. This is about getting Third Church into the community and building relationships in the community. All right, I'm going to quit pretty soon. On the front part of your handout are questions that are good questions for you as you consider not only developing the policy, right? Because the policy is just the first step, but really growing an anti-racism ministry. Pat referenced the Presbytery's anti-racism policy. You have a code for that. You have a code for Third Church's policy, and also for our curriculum. And then I also put the QR code to this video I showed on the back as well. The last thing I want to emphasize is you all have an asset that we don't have, and it's all about your location. You all have 3 that I can read, Black-led businesses, agencies in your building, tenants of yours. I that seems like a wide open door of opportunity to me, so I will lift that up. And lastly, training opportunities. These are suggested by Reverend William Wilkinson. So, you can look at a bunch of different lists of anti-racism training. I really respect that these are largely scripture-based and they're relatively local to our area. So I invite you to explore not only Third's curriculum, but these others as well. And I believe, I had a, I believe that's about it. I just really want to encourage you to use your very unique position here in Rochester. Your location is so well primed for this endeavor, the anti-racism ministry. And I really want to encourage you to continue this long history of social justice and recognize the assets you have, the privileges you have here in this building on your journey. And that's really what I have for you this morning. Yeah. Yeah.
Was there a video of Alana?
He's going to preach today. Yeah. I don't know if you record your services, maybe there will be a video. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious, when Third Church decided to embark on this journey, was there pushback?
Oh, there were two kinds of pushback. One was, you're not going far enough. We had a lot of that pushback. You're not really reaching far enough given our resources. We're not going far enough. I want to say, I think initially there was some feeling from the More Light crew, from the housing crew, from the poverty crew about we're diluting our energy, we're diluting our effort, we're diluting our budgets. But then we realized the poorest among us are Black folks, the least housed are Black folks. Among folks in the LGBTQAI community, the most persecuted are Black folks. So this intersectionality of racism that undergirds all the harms that we are trying to mitigate kind of brought us all together. Black folks are 4 times more likely to have kidney failure and less likely to receive a kidney. I mean, the mortality rates for Black moms during delivery, 10 times what they are for white folks. So whatever dissension we had among us, again, in conversation, we were able to use to forge stronger bonds. Yeah, great question.
I ask it because I think it could, like you said, it could be well-meaning pushback. And given we, like you, only on a larger scale, are even smaller and lost so many members, and energy is only whatever. So I could see well-meaning pushback. And so thank you for helping us to understand that even well-meaning pushback can, I don't want to say be overcome, but can be worked, discussed.
Along those lines, I am recognizing that Pat currently wears about 5 hats here, right? So I would imagine that a big part of your discernment process is going to be focus and what really is your privilege? What is the privilege you are able to use to become allies in the community? Yeah.
I like your emphasis on not trying to grow the congregation, because I think right now, many of us are afraid that this church will cease to be because the membership will dwindle so precipitously. But I like the idea that that's not the most important thing here. and that you are co-conspirators with people outside your walls, not focused. I think for quite a while, ever since I've been a member, about 30 years, we've been very internally focused. And I think that's one of the big changes we need to make here.
I mean, not quite as large, but still relevant, right? I think that's the shift we made. We recognized that we were dwindling. That third stool leg of Matthew 25, right? There's dismantling racism, also addressing poverty, systemic poverty, structural poverty. I get them all mixed up. The third one, congregational vitality. We have found that because of this engagement. What'd I do? Oh, must have been divine intervention. I don't know.
Said vitality.
Yeah. Really, this work has enlivened our congregation. I don't know if it has anything to do with our work, probably not, but we have a children's choir when we didn't have for a bit. And so our numbers are slightly increasing. I only know because I'm the clerk. You probably wouldn't know if you walked into the congregation. But this vibrancy comes with, at least in our case, our being in conversation with one another.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to be free associating here. So I guess one of the, bringing a Christian voice in a world in which the Christian voice is way too Christian nationalist these days. You've brought up that some of these resources are scripture-based, but you almost seem to have an apologetic point about that. And I almost would like to know how you see the Presbyterian Church in the Genesee Valley. I think one of our identity issues here is, are we really Presbyterian, or are we more non-denominational? And how does the Christian message confront the Christian nationalist message about the seven mountains? You have to kind of
Right.
claim the mountain of religion
Right.
for the cause, because the voices are being drowned out at the very least.
Right. So an excellent question. Our presbytery has 55 churches, most of them in rural settings, which brings a lot of diversity. There are congregations that are quite sure they're not racist, who've never had the conversation we're having this morning. So my first answer is, when we reached for scripture for the curriculum, we reached for the Matthew 25 resources that PCUSA puts out. And so it was easy for us to look for those underpinnings to dismantling racism and poverty and congregational vitality. And all 55 of those churches have access to those scriptures, right? We are all connected to that. Our mission at Third, coming alongside Black-led organizations, it's almost like a shadow mission, right? It's not Third Church and Maria's Pedal partnership, or Third Church and Equal Grounds partnership. It's Equal Grounds, and we're just promoting it. So we're not that visible, so we don't get that pushback. I don't think we intended, that, but that's just a feature of the way we are choosing to be anti-racist. And the beauty of being in a connectional church is that we already have these relationships built that we are able to tap into. We're celebrating our 200th anniversary, 2027. So is Memorial AM&E. So we are building relationships with Black churches. Memorial AME is one of them, as a way to strengthen our Christianity, the faith-based piece of our anti-racism mission. But we've had programs at Third, speakers come in about white Christian nationalism, and like we address it and we just quietly do what we do. And, we're not paying attention to that. Yeah.
So Beth, now that we are a smaller church, I mean, we have had tremendous success. We helped building mines in South Sudan.
Yes.
And we were there at the beginning of teen empowerment. Yeah. So we have a great legacy. And maybe because we're smaller now, maybe now and we have been internally focused in that sense, right? But maybe we actually need to be a little internal to just sort of sort out what, are we not welcoming sufficiently to, maybe having people in our congregation, but also maybe the way to get past that would be to form these relationships with these organizations. It's said that when your church changes, that's when people will want to be a member. But if you're always doing things the way you've always done them, then you're going to get the results that you have.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. We did get pushback from a couple of Black families about looking at our boards, looking at our staff, not seeing a lot of inclusion. So one year that I was on the nominating committee and for figuring out who's going to be on the PNC for our next head of staff. And we packed that committee with people of color. So we got a head of staff whose priority is anti-racism, right? So there are things you can do internally. One of the first things that happened at Third in regards to anti-racism is our personnel committee raised the salaries of our janitorial staff to a living wage, which, you wouldn't think that is the anti-racist move to make, but in fact it is. We now have 4 people of color on staff. And so it's like with each new hire, our head of staff requires that we have DEI candidates. So, yeah.
I'm curious how you went about building a relationship with AME Church,
Yeah.
because we've talked often about, well, we should build these relationships again because of our location and whatever. And I wouldn't know how to begin other than knock on their door and say, can I come worship? Yeah. Which I'm sure they'd say yes.
Yeah. So that's the first thing we did. We went and worshiped. 5 of us went and worshiped at Memorial AME. And if Dr. Love said, she's all about busy being in the world, being a Black woman, an educator, a mom. She's got enough to do. She doesn't have to deal with us white folks. Same for Memorial AME. They've got enough on their plate. Any bone they might throw our way is really gratuitous. So we worshiped, 5 of us with them. They had a lovely reception for us, which we didn't plan. We began to build relationships. Then we met with their administrative head. And now their history committee is meeting with our 200th celebration committee. Yeah, but that took a good 3 years, just that much.
Did you tell them that 5 of you were coming? How did they happen to have a reception for you? Or did you just walk in one Sunday?
That's what they do for everyone who's new. They have a reception. And so the new folks that Sunday happened to be the 5 of us, So Pat, you're talking about welcoming practice. I know, I should have gone back to Third and said, that was a really good idea. We should do that too. Yeah. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm interested in the first part, small group conversations, and how you worked out the community experience with Black organizations or people, and how you dealt with the feeling of being uncomfortable And
Yes.
the reason
Yes.
I'm thinking about that particularly is because I bumped into a neighbor who's Black before the 18th and asked if she was going to the rally and the march. She looked at me and said, "What rally?" I thought, "Come on."
Yeah.
you know. But I told her, she said, "No, we're not. Have you seen many Black people at these rallies?"
Yeah.
Well, the reason for that, we've done it. We've done it for 400 years and we're not
Yeah.
going to do it anymore. It's up to you.
Yep.
So that was what you might call an uncomfortable conversation.
Yes. And so,
Love to know how this would
yeah.
work out. We did talk more, which helped.
Yeah. So the bad news is all the conversations are uncomfortable. That's all of them are uncomfortable. And I tell myself, well, at least for me, I'm sure other people have some comfort. I am not an outward person. What we at Third have done is always had an Reverend Cunningham or Reverend Wilkinson join us in our small group classes. So it's one of them and a whole bunch of white people. And this is what I'm talking about, the emotional burden, the emotional labor they are gifting us in order that we can see the awkwardness of No Kings not reaching out to the African-American community. You may have noticed a difference between the first No Kings and the second one. The second one, they deliberately had a number of Black organizations on the podium. It was much more diverse than the first one, but it's a process. It's a long process of many conversations, but a lot of rewards.
I'm thinking about how, you're working with Amy Zion, and I'm thinking about Central Church of Christ, which was, that building was First Press and became part of Doopsy. Do you know they have a thriving congregation, Black congregation there? I've been in, at one of their worship services. They are huge and dynamic and talk about social justice. I mean, they are.
Yeah.
So why aren't we, walking down the street and why didn't we on our 50th anniversary, right? We could have had an interesting little tour of their building and what they've done with it in the years since they got it, right? But we have an opportunity right now, right down the street from
Mhm.
us.
So my last point, there are as many different ways to do anti-racism as there are congregations. And there's as many different ways to do mission as there are congregations. I find that Black churches often do far more with prison ministries than white churches do. So I am happy to contribute whatever I can to your journey, and I would just really hope that you would discern carefully about what privilege you have in this place and find a way to use it. Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right, awesome. So we got to go down to worship for sure and hear Ted Polano. And then next week we have Representative Joe Morelli who will be here. And he's going to take any questions and comments and concerns, and he's going to be wide open to anything that's on our minds. So please come and be present or join us on Zoom. Thank you. Thank you for the handout.